Welcome back to the Secret Underground Lair. So today we'll be mounting the legs on the table, kind of like this. Set into that like that. What I need to do is determine the length of this piece. I'll make the same piece at this end. Sorry, at this end. And then once the legs are attached, we can work on the shelf. That will be today's adventure. So I have already determined that I want the leg mount to be, and effectively the front of this leg to be 6 inches from the end of the table. So I've drawn a little line here so I know where that is. And I want this edge of the leg to be 1 inch from the back edge of the table, so that's going to put it here. And I have made a little mark on the table then where this edge would be if this is 1 inch in. And I have made a mark on the table where the inside edge of this will be, so that inside edge, so it's going to fit in there. If this is 1 inch away from the front of the table. Now, because this is a live edge, that 1 inch is, ish. So about an inch is what I'm showing there. So if that's there and that's there, the distance between the two is 7.5 inches, give or take a 16th. So I'll go with 7.5, which means then I need to cut this piece and this piece to 7.5 inches, and then we have exactly the length we need to get our leg assembly created. So I'm going to go cut these guys to 7.5 inches, starting off with just a squaring cut on the end to make sure we have a good edge. And then we'll screw these leg assemblies together. So I have the leg and our mounting board clamped together, a little bit of padding here to protect the surface of the leg. And I'm now going to use a Forstner bit to drill that pocket in here. Then I'll come through with a 1/8 inch bit so that we can sink this screw. You can see it's a nice little shouldered screw, little pocket screw. To hold this leg together. So I'll drill the holes, get the leg kind of mounted where I want it, and then I can put glue on and finish off the joint. Starting the pocket screw straight on, and then I'm going to twist it just a little bit to get me to the angle that I want. I am making that fairly deep because I want the bulk of the screw to be in the leg. And my bit is not quite long enough to handle that hole all the way through, but you can see I do have a hole here now, and I'm just going to take that drill and go a little bit deeper into the leg. There's our pocket screw, so that can screw in and we'll be good. I'm going to assemble this just with the screw, and then we'll come back and put glue in this. We'll take the screw out and glue the whole thing together. But I'm putting that in so that I can now attach the second leg like this. So we'll clamp it up again. and screw that in together. The other thing I want to point out about this is that by drilling the hole the way that I'm doing, these legs were constructed in two pieces. So you can see the join is right here. And that hole is going into the leg such that I hit fundamentally the structural part of the leg, the thick meat of it. So I'm not going to run any risk of splitting the thinner portion or splitting it apart along the glue joint. That is the leg assembly. These screws are now buried deep in there, and they're going to be up tight against the surface, the underside of the table, so you won't see them. But I will have two pocket screws that will drill holes through here that will attach this structure to the underside of the table. Underside of the table, rather. So there's the first set of legs now screwed to the underside of the table. So 2 holes drilled here and countersunk quite a bit. I'm actually going to put some plugs in there to fill those holes. At least that's what I'm thinking of at the moment. So legs in place. Now I'm ready to do the legs on the other end. And I'll show you what I do step by step here. I'll start by taking the legs apart, taking this mounting bracket, putting it on here, clamping it in place where I want it, then drill the 2 holes, then countersink them, and then put it all back together. Got the holes countersunk, so now what we'll do is put the leg assembly back together. Now we can mount this one. That is the basic table assembly. And it is wobbly, but that's kind of what I expect at this point, which is why I haven't spent a lot of time trying to make sure the legs are perfectly even. I am going to have to even them out, and this is going to change a little bit as the shelf gets put in place. So we have opportunities to make little adjustments with that shelf. Let me bring around, you can see the front view. So that is the console table. And our nice live edge here. Kind of like that look. Looking kind of pretty. Not overbearing, which is nice. I like that. Okay, so now I can concentrate on the shelf, which I want to be sitting 4 inches off the floor. The bottom of the shelf, 4 inches off the floor. So let me go bring over that piece that we've got and see how we can make that fit. So this is the piece that I want to use for the shelf. And here are some factors that I'm considering when I selected this piece and what I'm dealing with now that we have the table kind of in place. First thing is this piece has a defect in it. It looks like somebody took a chainsaw to the tree, I think, initially. So there's a little mark there, but I thought that would be perfect if I can notch that out to fit around the leg. So that's the intent there. So I'll have a little notch that'll fit around the leg. Of course, that means I need to put another notch up here, but it also kind of dictates where how to center this piece within the table. So if that's going to be there, then that defines that point. So we'll wind up cutting off here, and we're going to cut off here. Next thing I need to consider is the width of this piece. So from our leg outside edge to outside edge of the leg is 9 1/4 inches. And the piece at this end is really only about 8 1/2. It's slightly more than 8 1/2. So let's call it 8 1/2. That's 8 3/4. Yeah. 8 1/2, 8 3/4. I'll use 8 1/2 for now, just so you get an idea of what I'm thinking of. So 8 1/2 width here, 9 1/4 here. That's a difference of 3/4 of an inch, which would imply that the shelf is going to be inset into the legs. The legs then will stick out to be proud of their shelf edge by about 3/8 of an inch. So it's going to be an interesting look. I had initially thought to make the legs come out flush with, I was hoping the shelf might come out flush with the edge of the legs, or maybe a little bit proud of the legs. But we'll go the other way and make the legs just a little bit proud of the shelf. I don't think that's going to be a problem. It does mean, though, the shelf at this end is much wider. It's about 9 1/2 inches or so at this end. 9 1/4. But also at this end, I have this split. So by cutting this down to 8 1/2, I will be coming in here and getting rid of that split entirely. And then we'll cut it off here. A little bit of fiddling that I had to do to figure out how to cut this board. I had originally thought, well, a simple thing. I'm just going to put a bed rail on here like that, and then put that up against the fence, and away we go. But then I realized, well, hang on a minute. Is it going to be like that? Is it going to be like that? How am I going to get this right? So, working off the notch that I've got here, I know that the center of that notch needs to be 2 inches from the end. That's where the leg is going to be. So, going back 2 inches, now I can come out 40 inches from there. And now I know exactly where this piece is going to be. From here to here. That's going to be the length of our shelf. Next thing I want to do is I know that I'm going to be 8 1/2 inches from here to here. And same thing down at that end. I'm going to be 8 1/2 inches from the mark there to that side. So I put 2 marks there and drew a line. This now is my cut line. And I also put a parallel line here so that I know I can, and I did that by setting this long bed rail on here and going to the edge where I have the end marked. So I'm on the face of the live edge there. And I came down here to the face of the live edge here so that I know that represents, that's what the shelf is going to be. And you can see with this live edge, I got a little bit of a bow out here. That's fine, I'm okay with that. But it let me now draw a line here that is exactly on the plane. So the line that I drew here is exactly on the plane that'll be parallel to here. So I'm going to use this piece, screw that on there at both ends, and I can just make sure that it's on that line. So if it's on that line, this piece will be exactly parallel to this line here, and I can measure from here to here and set the fence and get my cut. Okay, a little bit long-winded, sorry about that, but this took a little bit of thought and planning. Just thought I'd show you what I'm up to. So here's our piece after running through the surface planer. And one thing this thing does is cleans it up and kind of polishes it, so it's going to have a reasonable representation of what it'll look like when sanded and finished. But I am going to run this through with the belt sander and then sand it up. I did get a couple scorch marks from the surface planer. So we'll get it sanded, a couple little uneven bits, but I'm okay with the uneven bits. And then we'll take off, of course, with our little tool, we'll get rid of the bark that's on the front of this. But first, a bite of lunch. So the shelf has now been stripped of bark along the live edge, and I've sanded it down with the belt sander and then up to 180. What I'm doing now is trying to figure out the position of the slots that I want to cut into the shelf. So I have positioned this board here. I've clamped it on, made a mark on the leg where it is 4 inches above the floor. On both ends, and then I've drawn a line on this side and I've drawn a line on the other side over here that now when I take this off I can now position this on our board here and see exactly where to transfer those marks. So I can extend the lines down here and cut a slot. These angles, the slot that I'm cutting here is actually on a little bit of an angle as well as deep. So it's a little bit of a tricky cut, but I'll be using, I think, the oscillating saw for that to make these cuts. But for now, let me set this up and transfer the marks. So here are the marks transferred onto the shelf. I should note that the inside edge is a slightly steeper angle, or shallower angle? More this way than this one. So slightly different angles. On this end, I'm going to have a little bit more work to do, so I've got these cuts that we'll have to fill in. This mark goes in a little bit deeper than I was wanting it to, but I think we'll be okay. There'll be a little bit of blemish on the inside, but there's some filler that needs to be applied here, so I might be able to hide that a little better. And of course the shelf is going to be cut off here, so this hole will disappear. But for now, I want to get these slots cut, and you can see I've marked the depth of where I want that cut to be on all sides. So I'm just trying to decide what's the right tool to use for that. And I think the oscillating saw I'll use to cut the depth here, because that's at an odd angle. And then I might just use the bandsaw or jigsaw to get rid of this. But I'll think about that for a minute. After a little bit of reflection, I've decided to go old school on this cut. So I put a block here even with this bottom edge of the cut, and I'll just kind of make slow and steady progress on this vertical piece. Of course, it would make sense to have this clamped down a little better. Let me see what I can do about that. Got through the one cut, I'm just going to start on the second now. A little extra bit in here that's from the original nonsense. A little gouge out here. But I think with the application of some filler, maybe able to hide that pretty well. Okay, I'll try doing one on the other side. That is what it is like with a shelf mounted in there. I have the shelf just sitting on a couple cans that are about 4 inches, about an eighth of an inch taller than 4 inches, so their height is reasonable. This is what it's our worst leg. I have these score marks. We're gonna have to clean that up. But that's how the shelf just kind of nestles into the legs of the table. In terms of mounting that shelf onto the table, what I am planning to do is again use some pocket screws to go up into the leg from the underside of the shelf. I had toyed with at some point drilling a hole through here and putting a screw in this way and then plugging it. But I don't think I'm going to do that. I'd prefer to do everything from the underside, that way it's not visible. Of course, the other thing now to do is to figure out where I want to trim this off. So I'll show you how I'll go about doing that. So now that I have the shelf kind of in place, my original assessment is to run a straight line from the top edge of the shelf here down to touching the leg where it meets the floor. And that would give me the point at which I could cut this off. Now, if I were to make this exactly the same length as the shelf above, I need to move that out an inch. I can make a mark. That moves it out about 3/4 of an inch. So the shelf would end here, being even with that, or it would end here, kind of being in that line. But frankly, I'm inclined to end it in that in this line, and even to the point of actually putting a slight taper. That's going to be 7 degrees, I think. No, it won't be 7 degrees. It's just a couple degrees. Yeah, I'm thinking to make the shelf a little shorter. Anyway, give me your thoughts on that. Short shelf or long shelf? It's going to be 40 inches or probably closer to 38 inches, maybe 38 and a quarter. But I'm going to call that a video for today, a little shorter than yesterday's. But thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. See you on the next video.